What is the Volunteer Match Network? Imagine a world of volunteers looking for their perfect match.
When a nonprofit posts a volunteer opportunity on Volunteer Match, that opportunity has the potential to reach millions of interested volunteers. To illustrate the reach of our network, let's imagine that this piece of candy represents 10,000 people.
An average of 15 million people visit volunteermatch.org each year. In addition, each volunteer opportunity has the potential to reach 10 million pro bono and skilled volunteers through LinkedIn's volunteer marketplace. 2.6 million employee volunteers search for our opportunities from companies like Starbucks, Groupon, and JetBlue. And more than 500,000 employee volunteers from multiple corporate giving platforms have access to volunteer opportunities from our network. Since 1998, Volunteer Match has facilitated over 12 million nonprofit volunteer connections. Now that you know more about the reach of our network, get started by going to volunteermatch.org and posting your volunteer opportunity today.
Thank you all so much for joining us. I am joined today by my friend and colleague, Jaime McKenzie from United Health Group. We are excited to be sharing with you some research that we've done together on the nature of the health benefits and the mental health and physical health benefits of volunteering. We're also joined today by Basil, who is on my team, and he is our social media liaison. So you'll see his little icon in the interface. He's going to be helping us facilitate questions and run some, hopefully help us manage some of the polling and just make this an interactive session with you all today. So please share your questions in the chat box. And with that, I think I'll just do a little bit of overview of how we think this project and this research might relate to some of the work that you all do. Introduce myself, and Jaime will introduce herself. Then we'll jump into the findings of the research. And when that's all done, we'll take some questions. So I hope that is a good place to start. And so why don't before I jump into just a little bit of how this relates, I'll give a brief introduction of myself and Volunteer Match, and Jaime will do the same, and then we'll talk a little bit about this research project we did together and how we see it relating to social work and your clients and the health of both individuals and communities. So if you don't know, Volunteer Match is the web's largest volunteer engagement network. We're a technology platform that's all about making it easier for good people and good causes to connect. So on Jaime's behalf, let me just at least introduce briefly, United Health Group is United Healthcare is an amazing organization that Volunteer Match has been working with for, more than a decade on issues related to volunteering and the opportunity to connect more people to meaningful opportunities to serve. That's actually happened in two ways. We have been a network that the United Healthcare team has relied on for many years to find local opportunities. As an organization, we've been partnered there for many years. And we also partnered together on this research study that actually began in 2009. After Obama was elected, he did a national call to service to invite more people to get involved with their local communities. And one of the questions that came up along the way was really about how volunteering impacts our lives as individuals. Everybody knows that volunteering is good for the community and for others. But one of the interesting questions that has not really been explored in depth is really what are the personal, physical, and health benefits of volunteering to the individual. So at a moment of great excitement around engagement and community volunteering, United Health Group stepped up and as part of the President's Call to Service began a research project with Volunteer Match to study how volunteering impacts the health of individuals. This was all back in 2009, and it was a pretty significant launch to this program. It was done in conjunction with iParticipate. You saw in the last slides that, there was celebrity endorsement and, Michael Bloomberg and Ashton Kutcher and the like, who really got excited about really looking more closely at how volunteering impacts individuals. This is some of the positive press. It was ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC. This was a big story in 2009. There were national ads placed, and that legacy of that research from 2009 continues on today. And we're excited to be sharing with you really the second installment of that research that came out just last year. So it's nearly 10 years later. And just to give you a sense, this is I hate to steal Jaime's thunder on this, but I'm presuming that given the fact that she is not back on the line yet, this story about volunteering's impact on individuals, we're going to talk a lot about the research moving forward. But the real reason it's important is how it changes individuals' lives. Volunteering is something that I know has certainly changed my life in many positive ways. I was, volunteering with my dad's Rotary Club when I was 9 years old at an Easter Seals camp. And that experience of engaging with kids that were very different from the kids that I was interacting with at school, and understanding how my work, just being a part of that camp's cleanup day, kind of a spring cleanup day, was really all about the experience that those kids would have that summer at Camp Goodwill in upstate New York. And that experience profoundly changed how I think about volunteering and getting involved in the community. And that experience, in my small way, was also the experience that this woman had. She was massively depressed and got involved with a local volunteering opportunity. And she really credits her ability to kind of overcome the depression that she was feeling and getting involved with something that she cared about, that she found meaningful, and that really just pulled her out of a place that was, really a very extraordinarily dark place for her. And I think that, those stories take place every single day in people's lives. And you often hear about anecdotally how volunteering or getting involved is changing people's lives. Seldom is it really kind of a life or death situation, but that also happens as well. And that was really the spirit of the research that prompted United Health Group and Volunteer Match to dig in and try to understand whether or not volunteering is just sort of a feel-good activity, or whether you could really quantify some of the health benefits. So here's the big picture of this study. The Doing Good is Good for You research study. It's a national research study, and it explored the dimensions of volunteering, a little bit about who is volunteering, how often, where, and why. But then more importantly, the benefits of volunteering for volunteers, not just on the community or on the cause that they're serving, but also on specifically on the volunteers. And can we identify specific health benefits associated with the act of volunteering? So this is a big old study. United Healthcare spent quite a bit of money. I will thank them for that. If Volunteer Match had done it, we would have only been able to ask, maybe 100 people. But this was a national survey done by a leading research firm, Cantor TNS. They do market research and market survey work. The study involved 2,705 adults across the U.S. In an effort to make a representative sample of folks that were, both volunteers and not volunteers. And the data was all weighted to ensure a representative sample of the total U.S. population. So these findings are aimed at being representative of the U.S. at large, demographically. Come on. Hi. I was almost done, Jaime. So
I heard you did splendidly.
I was just framing stuff. I was just vamping for time, but I'm now kind of into we've gotten through a little bit of the methodology for the research. So fortunately, I have not stolen any of your thunder when it comes to the specific findings. So why don't you pick up, if you're ready to jump back in, why don't you pick up and take it from the slide that we're on right now. We're just sort of getting into the overview of what some of the findings that the research found. Why don't you pick it up from here?
All right, great. All right, so the benefits of volunteering fit into, and the first one is feel all around, physically, mentally, emotionally. Volunteers feel less stress. They're better equipped to deal with it and report lowered stress levels all around, which is a really great thing in today's world. The third is purpose. Volunteers report just having an overall greater purpose in life, stronger and with their friends, their community, their colleagues, their family, everyone around them. And lastly, engaged. Volunteers they're more engaged with everything in life, and they feel more in control over their health and more in control over how they feel and how they react to stressful situations. Exactly, yes. And I was just saying that it's important to remember that volunteering isn't just something healthy people do, even though it seems that more of volunteers are healthy people in general, but everybody can reap the benefits. So this study, by the way, represented a sample of adults across the country. I don't know if Greg covered that, but young, old, good health, poor health. And interestingly enough, remarkably, I should say, we see that older individuals and those who suffer from multiple chronic conditions are taking on volunteering to feel better, and they are feeling better as a result. All right, next slide. So this is just, pointing out once again that it does have a proven positive effect on both our physical and mental health. And now we're going to do our first poll and hope that it works.
And the question that we just wanted to, we're exploring is, has volunteering made you feel physically or mentally healthier? And if, answers yes, no, not really sure, never really thought about it. And then if you have any specific stories that you want to share, Basil is standing by to keep track of that as well.
Looks like we're going to have to rely on the chat box this time around. So for all of our attendees who are listening in, just go ahead and let us know via the chat tool whether volunteering has made you feel physically or mentally healthier in the past.
Yeah, whether you've had an experience where it's made you feel that way. And interestingly, I'll share that really kind of apropos of this question and the research work that United Health did, we were recently approached by the National Institute of Health and a team that is working on actually doing a random sample survey of volunteering as an intervention for depression and feelings of isolation, not as a, kind of as a national research study like this one, but based on a clinical trial to explore the relationship between volunteering as an intervention for folks that are feeling isolated or depressed, which I thought was, an interesting step forward on the kind of this theme. So Basil, why don't we just keep going, and maybe you can interrupt us, and as you get some of any feedback from the chat box.
Yeah, so far nobody has said no. 8 of our listeners say yes, and 2 of you guys say not sure. And if you've not weighed in yet, feel free, you can still weigh in.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I just want to tell one of my favorite stories. So at United Healthcare, we do something called Ocean, a nonprofit called the Jimmy Miller Memorial Foundation. And basically it's all about getting people out into the water, people with autism, even blind children we've taken out there, and really looking at the ocean and surfing as a way to just help you physically and mentally and just to raise your spirit. And we were out at Camp Pendleton one day in California, and I started talking to a Marine who was one of the volunteers that day helping other Marines get out into the ocean. And I said, is this your first time? And he said, no, it's not. But I almost, he said 2 years ago, I almost took my life. But thankfully, the morning I was going to take my life, somebody made me come out to this ocean therapy session. And it just changed my life, helping up, getting myself on the board and helping other people get out into the ocean. It just made an impact that I never knew was possible. And so now this guy just goes out every year and helps with ocean therapy. And it just was like, wow, just blew my mind. So just a fun story of the impact.
Small things make a big difference.
Thank you.
So let's why don't we jump right into the specific data that United Health collected during this survey, or we collected together, and keep pushing ahead. So Jaime, take it away.
75% do physically healthier by volunteering. So I think even it's similar of what you guys said. Also, more than 1/3 of those of us who do volunteer find that participating in these activities helps us manage our chronic illnesses. Compared to those who have not volunteered in the past 12 months, volunteers are significantly more likely to feel that they have control. So we're not saying that, if you start volunteering, you're going to instantly get rid of all your illnesses, but you're going to feel better. You're going to feel like you have more power over, what's going on in your body, which is important. Interestingly, also, we noticed from the study that Hispanic people are even more likely than all the other races to report feeling physically healthier. 72% over 50% for non-Hispanic. Better age. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And really, older on a regular basis, we found that they were less likely to develop high blood pressure, which is obviously a major risk factor for various bad things that you don't want, like heart attack, stroke, heart failure, and metabolic syndrome. So really, it's never too late to start volunteering. It can, again, prevent things and just make you feel better all around. So, and then lastly, on the physical benefits, in regards to obesity, which is a big crisis in our country, volunteers are less likely to be obese than non-volunteers. Since 2013, the rate of obese non-volunteers has increased, while the rate among volunteers has remained constant. So,
that's
the thing. Yeah. All right, and then we can move on to the next slide.
Sorry, I got a little ahead of you there, but there we go.
That's okay. So we just talked about the physical benefits, but the connection between volunteering and mental emotional health is actually even more dramatic. Almost all volunteers in our study noted an improvement in mood, or 93% of the people that took the study. That's huge. Who doesn't want to be in a better mood? It might sound obvious, but I just think it's something to remember that, I've noticed that. I've been to countless volunteer projects, working in my job, and it is true. I could be having the crummiest morning, and then when I go to a volunteer project, I leave just feeling euphoric and that I'm a part of something big, help somebody. I think it seems like such an obvious, but it's just, helping others. Calm and peaceful and have more energy to a greater extent than those who haven't volunteered in the past year. All right, we got a new poll on the next slide.
All right, here
Greg.
we go. So have you experienced volunteering making you or someone that is close to you feel less stressed? Yes, no, not sure. And the not sure is, I think, kind of I never really either didn't notice it or can't quite prove it, or maybe I felt a little bit, but I'm not confident that it was the volunteering that did it.
And it's looking good. We have Andra says it's always great to give back. It's good for the soul. We've got some yeses. Not sure in the moment, yes, but not sure about overall. Sometimes. Yes, 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 yes. So overall, we got a lot of yeses.
Well, that certainly reinforces the kind of the anecdotal being reinforced by the data. I think many of us have felt this way before, and I think part of the reason to do this research is it's one thing to sort of feel it on our own, and it's another thing to have the data that supports the same conclusions. So, Jaime, you want to keep on rolling?
Yes, yes. And this was just our lovely infographic that we did on social media that we'll talk about in a little bit as well, our campaign to share this data. So fun little graphic there that we already kind of covered, that 79% report lower stress levels. And then moving on to the next slide, Greg, we're going to go into the intrinsic benefits of volunteering and how it just enriches our lives beyond our expectations.
All right.
And next slide. All right. So most volunteers in the study reported an enriched sense of purpose in life. That was 94% of respondents, an expanded worldview, and having learned valuable things about themselves. Sometimes, volunteers tell us, like, I was good at writing, and now they're helping nonprofits, write their business plans or write social media posts. In fact, volunteers have consistently higher scores than non-volunteers on 9 well-established measures of emotional well-being. So that's everything from personal independence, the capacity for rich interpersonal relationships, and really overall satisfaction with their life. So it comes as no surprise that with a healthier, more fulfilled outlook, that's accompanied by added social benefits. So volunteers are noting that they've developed friendships through their volunteer projects. They report a higher capacity to just enjoy socializing in general compared to people who don't volunteer. So this is just saying that by volunteering, you're gonna just, again, have an overall higher sense of purpose and engagement than you would if you didn't.
All right.
All right. So, all these wonderful things about volunteering.
That was the good news.
Yeah, not less good news. And I didn't get to say it at the beginning when I magically got cut off, but one of the stats that has remained consistent from our first study back in 2009 to our current study is that about the same amount of people are volunteering. So, 30 Americans volunteer, but we're spending less time volunteering. And in this day and age, we need it. We're just in a time of great struggle and conflict and negativity, especially with social media and people. And we wanted to know, well, why is that? And in this study, people said it's time. People don't feel like they have enough time in the day. And we can all relate, right? I mean, it's an easy thing to say, I don't have, what's going to give, if you will. But we are spending less and less time volunteering. So that's a little disheartening, but at the same time, it's a good challenge for all of us to challenge ourselves and others to keep getting out there and giving back. So
and Jaime, I think it may go without saying, but it seems like the corollary of all of this research is that as people spend less time volunteering, that making less time for it is likely to have a physical and an emotional and kind of all the inverse health benefits of volunteering. The opposite seems to have been largely true for the 2/3 of Americans that 3/4 or 2/3 that aren't volunteering. They're more likely to experience the depressions and a lack of well-being, a limited sense of purpose. So the diagnosis, as it were, for a lot of people may just be that they're unable to find the time in their life to stay connected to their communities and involved with things that are relevant to staying connected and involved with organizations and causes that are really important to them. And it's a little bit like I think volunteering has become a little bit increasingly it's more like staying in good health. And it's that, it's often easy to not eat well or sleep well or exercise, and staying connected and involved, I think, is another piece of the repertoire now that increasingly people recognize, as a tool in our toolkit for staying healthy and emotionally strong and confident and, really together.
It's so true. Yep.
Yeah, and I feel like 20 years ago we were, people were getting smarter about their diets and their health. And I think people are really waking up to the fact that our social activities are really important to our physical and emotional well-being in ways that kind of seem obvious when you talk about them, but it's easy to forget about it and just not do it, just like eating well or exercise. So with that a little bit of that context, I think one of the reasons we are excited to share this research with all of you is not just so that you can share it with yourselves and your family and your networks, which we hope that you'll do, but also as part of your professional work, and how volunteering can really be a tool that we are encouraging more practitioners, social workers, doctors, physicians, the medical field, as a tool for intervening with folks that are feeling, either lonely or depressed or lacking a sense of purpose, that this is a really powerful way to get people more connected and to feel better about themselves and and their own kind of situation and their physical and mental health. So if you've gotten to that point and we've persuaded you with not only our anecdotes, but the research, then it does beg the questions, what's next? What are some of the best practices on finding a meaningful volunteer experience? And that's something that Volunteer Match obviously spends a lot of time trying to understand what really draws people to volunteer experiences, and how you can find good ones and not end up in bad ones. If there's something that's also very true of the volunteering world, it's that all volunteer experiences are not created equal. And, for all of us who have had great volunteer experiences and transformative volunteer experiences, it's also possible that we've had a really bad volunteer experience. Our work at Volunteer Match is really all about creating a system where we can reduce the number of bad volunteer experiences and increase, find a better way to connect and give people the information and the resources they need to really find meaningful ways to put their time and talent to good use. So our advice to anybody who's interested in volunteering is really kind of threefold. First of all, it's really important to find something that you really are interested in and care about. There is nothing worse than volunteering for something that you don't really care about. Volunteering is extraordinarily personal. Autism, it's touched my life. I have a son who is autistic, so autism is an issue area that I'm much more connected to than, heart health. And there's nothing, objectively different about those two worlds. It's all very subjective. So don't be, don't be, as we say, voluntold to get involved with something that isn't really connected to your personal experience. Or to the personal experience of someone you're encouraging to go out and volunteer. It's really important to give them opportunities to find something that they can connect with. Second, it's also really good to talk about, or at least upfront understand what's being expected of you as a volunteer. And being able to put your skills and experiences to good use is something that is really important to a lot of volunteers. And that's something that you can, as you're exploring opportunities, make sure that, if you really want to put your social media skills or your technical skills or your writing skills or your art skills or your building skills to good use, there's plenty of opportunities out there. So find something that's a good fit with what you really want to do. And then it's really, really important not to get overwhelmed and get into something that is, more than you're really ready to bite off. If you are interested in volunteering, be clear about your expectations and your ability to get there. There's nothing worse than kind of getting into a volunteer experience and either having to quit or feeling, overwhelmed by it, or honestly, in some instances, feeling like you're not really committing enough to feel like you're making a difference. So those are kind of the three dimensions. They're interest areas, your skills, and making sure it fits into your life. And of course, you can always find more volunteer opportunities on Volunteer Match or anywhere on the web, or just get involved with local groups and organizations where you can kind of explore the opportunities to give back. And then, Jaime, do you want to talk a little bit about this, or maybe even Basil?
Yes. So these are some additional resources that we wanted to share with you guys. You can read the full study at this link here. And you can also download this infographic that you can share with other people or post it on social media yourself to kind of further your interest in this topic.
Yep, or feel free.
And then on the next slide, yes, definitely reach out to us if you need anything. And you can quiz your knowledge. This is something fun you could do, you know, share with your friends, share with your clients, share with whoever. But Volunteer Match put together this really cool quiz about this study, and I'll be just quizzing your knowledge on the impact of volunteering on our health. And so they shared it on social media, and so far nearly 1,400 people have taken the quiz on PlayBuzz, so that's pretty fun for us, and we encourage you to take the quiz as well.
Awesome, and now we've saved a little bit of time at the end for any skeptics out there who are have additional questions or concerns or want to share stories or offer feedback. We're here to answer your questions. So Basil, did we have any specific questions that came in while we were talking?
Hey, Greg. None yet. There were some comments around the polls, which is great to hear that you folks are engaged. But let's give everyone maybe another minute or so to ask questions. Oh, it looks like some are coming in. So one listener says, I'm not really sure. In some cases, I felt less stressed after volunteering, but I believe it was because I was working with a good group of people. Other times, volunteering seemed to be very stressful.
I think that I've felt that experience too. And I think, kind of getting back to the best advice, for me, the moments when volunteering was most stressful is really when I either made a bad choice or more likely gotten involved with something that really was kind of either poorly organized or wasn't really driven by kind of an open choice. So I think that, the best examples of that, we've all had stories or heard stories of, really kind of being, encouraged to volunteer, really more than asked to volunteer for, there would be a big event or a big, painting day or cleaning day or something that was, really not driven by a real local need in the community, but more by the ethos of let's get together and, feel like we're doing something good. And I think all of us are getting savvier about the difference between, getting involved with an organization or an activity that really is driven by, some immediate need. And sometimes it's like big things happen and we look to, volunteer, not because it's really needed, but because it feels like it's the right thing to do. And I can see those moments.
Yeah, that's a good point, Greg.
Did you have stories like that?
I completely agree. Yeah, the first point I was going to make too was just, I think the biggest thing about that part of the study was showing kind of long-term stress, not just, like immediately after you kind of have that like buzz, generally from just feeling good, but how it really impacts your stress overall and just in general. But yeah, Greg, I completely agree with your points. And I was thinking about it. And at first I thought the only time I've ever felt stressed, and I don't think it was stress, is more just maybe overwhelmed by just the need. And, if I was at a project where I remember one time, truck to a gentleman and take one bag because, I have to walk, 15 miles to my house and I just can't carry this much food. And I just wanted to cry. I get more sad, I guess, and overwhelmed by all of, the issues in our world. But I think even though I felt sad and overwhelmed a little bit, like I knew that I'd rather still be there helping make a difference and kind of feel those uncomfortable feelings that sometimes comes with volunteering.
Yeah, agreed.
Perfect, guys. We actually got an additional comment and one question from one of our listeners. So a couple of minutes ago, Katisha says, I have a friend who actually started to volunteer on her own randomly. She noticed it helped her manage her anxiety and take the focus off of herself and her own issues. Katisha says this is a great resource to share with friends and colleagues. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, thank you. And in fact, that was, I don't know what Greg said about Jackie at the beginning of the presentation, but long or short, Jackie had severe mental illness and tried to take her life multiple times, dealing with severe depression, anxiety, panic attacks, never left the house. Her one passion, though, was dogs, and she would sit inside her house by herself night after night, not speaking for months on end. But she would love to watch any show. And after trying to take her own life twice, her mom gave her a newspaper article for a nonprofit in Scotland who was looking for puppy trainers. And she decided that she just had this feeling that she just wanted to do it. She just had to do it. And she went, and now after a couple of years, she is completely, well, I shouldn't say completely, just in a much better place. She talks to people, she's out and about, she's engaged, she fosters and trains puppies that they train to help people with disabilities lead better lives. So that was going to be my story of how volunteering helps with mental health issues. So we hear it a lot at United Healthcare as well, from not only our employee volunteers, but the people that join us at our volunteer efforts across the country. I know it for myself, just that it does help with anxiety and stress. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you guys got a really good question a couple of minutes ago as well from Neva or Neva. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this person asks, do you have thoughts on how one could mobilize youth or one's community to volunteer?
I mean, I think.
Oh yes, we're gonna need another session for that, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was going to say, I think, there's definitely some tools out there, some of the organizations that focus on it. We actually see a lot of activity on Volunteer Match around, kids and teens and opportunities, organizations that are specifically recruiting for kids and teens. We partner with an organization called Unself, which is doing a lot of teen-focused volunteering. And then, Do Something is another organization that has really been active in this space and not only provides kind of toolkits for getting young adults involved, but actually does a lot of kind of youth engagement as well. So I think the key there is understanding that kids are definitely increasingly they're eager and available to help, and creating. It's really just finding the right tools to get them organized and connected. And if you're a nonprofit organization, I think it's absolutely take advantage of the services that are out there to help reach out to kids and spread the word about opportunities to get involved. That's a great question, though. And do you have some more thoughts you wanted to share, Jaime?
We have heard from other people too that just, working with your, local leaders, elected officials as well, and just figuring out, what the main issues are in your community, and just really trying to figure out, what the biggest needs are, basically, is something that we tend to tell people as well. So great question, though.
Yeah.
Oh, we got lots of questions here.
Yeah, we've got tons of really good questions. Do we have time for one more, guys?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
So Andra says that it's nice to see some people volunteer on their own. Others could benefit from encouragement to give back. And what do you guys think are some suggestions to give those who are retired and have never volunteered before to get them to volunteer?
Wow. I would say probably the best way to get someone to volunteer who hasn't volunteered before is to invite them to come along with you at some volunteer event. And failing that, we've done a lot of research on older adults and boomers in particular about, what really gets them to give back. And I do think boomers in particular really want to do a lot of research up front, because they're far more. We like to say that they're more particular about finding opportunities where they really, really feel like their time hasn't been wasted. That's really key to the boomer audience, and that just requires a little bit of research up front and finding something that they both care about and are clear about what the expectations are for that activity. So much rather get them involved in something where they can put their interests and skills to good use, doing something that they like doing, rather than just kind of a generic volunteer opportunity, would be my advice for older adults.
Agreed, yes. And just, find an opportunity on Volunteer Match that, some of them are long-term or require training, or, so just obviously finding maybe something that's obviously doesn't have a big commitment and could just be a good test run. A lot of times, I think food banks or food shelves are a good start.
Yeah.
The food warehouse is just a great place to go, because they have multiple groups from multiple organizations and on their own, and they're very structured and it's turnkey, and it's generally not, it doesn't require a skill versus being able to just stand and maybe.
Yeah.
A good idea.
Yeah, I agree. The food banks do, at least the food bank in San Francisco does a great job of organizing volunteer activities, because they, put the need into real context, what the problem is, why the food bank is there, hunger in San Francisco. And then they also, it's a very kind of social, they've got lots of very social activities. So you're doing something together, and that's fun to be working with other people. They understand some of the dynamics that really make volunteering feel both important and give you a real sense of community and camaraderie while you're doing it. I wanted to thank all of you for your time today. Encourage you also to follow up with us. I think I've seen in the chat that the presentation will be available through the interface. I'm not quite sure how that happens. If that doesn't work, we'd be happy to follow up. I'm at gbaldwin@volunteermatch.org, and you can certainly follow up with me if you need the presentation. And I also wanted to thank Jaime, not only for United Health's ongoing commitment to service and volunteering in this research, but for agreeing to join me today to present this study to all the folks that were interested out there. I'm going to sign off and say thank you all for your time and your attention, and good luck to all of you in your work moving forward. So thanks very much. I appreciate having the opportunity to be with you all today. Thanks.